of Aliens and Monsters. Enjoy.
Welcome back to lunch. Hope you had a good one. And sorry about this morning running a little bit over, but however, those things happen. Downstairs was the same too. Claire Williams is our next speaker. And Claire is an astronomer and an assistant director of the Canberra Planetarium and Observatory. She's been studying and investigating the UFO question for 28 years. Now, the lecture this afternoon, or the talk this afternoon, is called Lesson from Sidonia, Verdict on the Face of on Mars. Claire reviews the 20-year history of the face of Mars, paying particular attention to details from the most recent flyby pictures. She discusses the implications of the latest face on Mars information for ufologists. Welcome, Claire.
Thank you very much. Now, I believe I'm going to have to handle my own overhead transparency here, so I'll just have to be ducking backwards and forwards to the overhead projector. I'd like to put up my first image. Yes, it's like it's come out well enough and that everybody can see it. Can you all see that clearly? Is that a little better? That should be okay, is it? Right. Well, this is the image that was released or taken by the Mars Global Surveyor earlier this year in April. And this, to me, is the definitive answer to what the face on Mars actually is. And I'd like to compare this particular image to the next one, which is the original image that was taken by the Viking lander, or Viking orbiter, sorry, back in 1972. This was the one that was originally issued with a press release, and is very suggestive of the face, as you can see in the photo there at the top. Now, this particular image is the one that started the whole story of the face on Mars, and really is quite a saga in its own right. For 22 years now, people have been looking at this image, processing it through various techniques and arguing for and against the presence of the civilization on Mars. The principal evidence that they have used has been the symmetry of the face itself, and we can see with the actual previous image that symmetry really was a complete illusion. What we actually can see when we look closely at the face or the maser that is the face on Mars, we see that all those structures that people thought were artificial turn out to be quite natural looking in fact. And so we have the eyes being a crater, we have the nose as a ridge, possibly showing thermal vents or hydrothermal vents, and the mouth has been identified by geologists as a landslide caused by a process called solifluction. Now, not being a geologist myself, I can't explain the natural processes involved, but this particular geologist said that this whole thing is anomalous in itself, but not because it's an artificial structure in the wrong place, simply because it's a geological anomaly and very interesting from that point of view. And I think that this is a point that I haven't made in my paper on it, but one that I'd like to make now, and that is that quite often when we look at images such as these, what we actually miss out on when we take it, we argue over whether or not these things are artificial, is that we lose the opportunity to study them for what they really are as natural phenomena, and very interesting natural phenomena in their own right. And sometimes we overlook the most interesting natural phenomena because we want to ascribe a paranormal explanation. I just have the next, the press release. This is the press release that was originally issued with that first image of taken by Viking. And you'll see there that the JPL, or Jet Propulsion Laboratory scientists, were quite circumspect in the description of the object, and I can't quite see it and I can't remember it. Okay, it says that the picture shows a rodent maze-like landform. The huge rock formation in the centre, which resembles a human head, is formed by shadows giving the illusion of eyes, nose and mouth. The picture is 1.5 kilometres long, or across with the sun angle is approximately 2 degrees. The second appearance of the image is due to the errors emphasised by enlargement photo. The picture was taken on July 26 from a range of 1,873 kilometres, rising 2 or rising photos on the right schedule of Viking. But they said back then that it was a bit of light, and a lot of people didn't believe them, and there's been some fascinating research. This does have the next characteristic. This one actually shows Thank you. This one actually shows the original image that was transmitted by the Viking craft. And it's the region now known as Sardinia. And the face is actually there in the image. And I'll point it out to you. I like to walk around and I feel a bit confined here. Let me see if I can remember exactly where it is. I believe that the face itself might be this way and fall down here. Just in there. It's quite a poor quality image, and you may be able to make out across here that there's all these little black dots that run in lines across it. They're known as Rousseau, and they're little markings that were actually on the faceplate of the camera. The idea behind putting those in was so that they could determine whether or not there was any distortion of the image taken by the camera. The type of camera used for the Vidicon, and it wasn't like our modern CCD cameras or video cameras. It was actually closer to a TV camera using the same technology. And the picture could be distorted by the presence of electromagnetic fields. So in order to be able to eliminate that sort of distortion, they needed some sort of bridge, and they devised this technique of putting these little dots on the faceplate of the camera. So we have those across the image. We also see the presence of, I don't know whether you can make it out from there, but there are lots of little markings within it, which are called shift errors or transmission errors. And all of these had to be removed from the raw images. I've got 2 raw images. The first phase that were basically used throughout the whole Mars space debate. If I could just have the next one that shows the other phase, which is the 32 A70. Sorry, 35 A72. This one is a lower resolution image. The other one was actually the higher resolution image. this is a slightly lower resolution image taken from further away, and the face image in this one is just about there. Once again, we can see there's one of those roseaux nearby, and all this sort of noise in the image has to be removed. You could just have I don't want this to turn into a dry discussion about image processing, but there are certain issues involved that really need to be looked at and addressed before we can understand how some of the mistakes were made in the identification of various Cydonia landforms as being artificial. Here we have a close-up image of the face taken in those two writing frames, 35 and 70 on the photomat. One of them, the one on the left-hand side, shows remarkably more noise than the other one, and we can see lots of speckling there. Now, the speckling is less noticeable on the 70, but you'll notice that there's a big roseau on the side of the face. Now, when you look at the processed images, you never see all that noise or the roseau. It's usually being cleaned up in the processing. And I think I've got another one there that shows yes, this one shows some of the images, how they look after they've been corrected for the bit error or transmission errors. The transmission errors that creep into the whole system just by the fact that this is information that's transmitted over very large distances with equipment that is subject to noise. You also find that I'll have to read this out, so just excuse me a moment, I just want to get this correct. Okay, the communications link between the Viking orbiter spacecraft and the receiving stations on Earth did not use error-correcting encoding, and random errors found their way into the data stream as bit errors. If these transmission errors were in the high bits, they resulted in bright or dark pixels. Now, they're quite noticeable in the previous image that we had a look at. If they were in the low bits, the resulting incorrect picture elements were not so easy to detect. And it is easy to pick out in those images where you have the prominent bit error noise, because you see those dark and bright pixels, but that's not all the noise there is in those images. And so we have a lot of the other noise that's really not apparent because it doesn't stand out. It's not different or that different in contrast to the image itself. Now, these errors were corrected for by replacing any value that differed from its neighbours by more than a specified value with the average of its nearest neighbours. This is how they've actually smoothed the image to remove that noise. And we see the result of that here. They also used a similar sort of process to remove the roseau, although if you look carefully, you might just be able to see a slightly darker greyer area where the roseau was in the original image. Now, one of the most important things to realise from this is just it's almost impossible to tell just how much noise was originally in the images. But chances are it was fairly high. And so when we're talking about very fine detail, we have no way of knowing whether or not the data that is in the image that we're looking at is just something that the computer has put in as a result of its own error-correcting algorithms, or whether it's something that's actual, a feature that is actually there on the planet, and information that is true, so to speak. Can I just have the next one? Oh, that's it, is it? Okay, I thought I had another one, but obviously I've taken that one out. Now, some of the original Cydonia image work was done by computer technicians who were contracted to JPL, DiPietro and Molinar, and they wrote, or a book has been written about their work and so on, and they actually invented all these processes for trying to look more closely, specifically at the face on Mars in the Cydonia region. The original work was done on the original NASA tapes, but the NASA tapes were never originally defined for the sort of processing, image processing that we do today in our computers. They were meant to be analysed in hard copy prints rather than having analysis done directly on the electronic data. This is something that seems to have escaped an awful lot of the researchers. When they have used the electronic data, they've actually had to modify it for use in modern computer image processing packages. So we've got a whole host of errors and processing artifacts creeping into our work as we go. The original electronic enlargements that they took of the face were full of transmission errors, lacked contrast, and had poor resolution. And this is one of the most important points because I've often heard people quote that they've been able to, or they've talked about features that they've seen in these images that are actually smaller than the resolution of the original cameras now. It completely escapes me how you can talk about having teeth in the face that are smaller than the resolution of the original image. You just can't get down to that sort of detail. They actually developed a whole new technique that they call SIT to enhance their images. They increased the resolution 9-fold, meaning they zoomed in on the images 9-fold before they actually started to play around with it. They stretched the grayscales of the image because Mars actually is quite a low contrast planet. It doesn't have, it's much darker than the Earth, but it's about as much further away from the sun, and it doesn't have a high contrast surface such as the Earth has. So the images from Mars don't have to be conveyed to us within the full range of what we would normally consider grayscales from 1 to 255. Most of the information that we need can be conveyed in 80 grayscales or so. But what they actually did, they had to stretch the grayscales of the image so they could enhance the contrast and hopefully bring up some finer detail. The original interpolation grayscale, the program interpolated the grayscale levels between adjacent pixels of the original image and rendered sharper edge definition. This produced a much cleaner image with better contrast, but was achieved at the expense of smoothing the background in the data. So we've already had them increase the resolution 9-fold, which means that they trick themselves into thinking they can see information at much smaller resolution than the original camera, which was a big mistake. As far as I've been able to tell, any subsequent image work has been done on the massaged images from DiPietro and Molinar, including the work done by Mark Carlotto. And there's been a lot of discussion on the internet about Mark Carlotto's work, and I'm not going to get into a discussion on his work here today, because I don't think it's really relevant to the lessons that we can learn from all of this. Some of the interesting things that people tried to do with Cydonia data was by running it through fractal analysis, so they converted it to a fractal image. I don't know if any of you understand about what a fractal is. Hands up if anybody knows. Well, we've got a few people. For those that don't know, Basically, if you've seen images of the Mandelbrot set, and is everybody familiar with the Mandelbrot set? Well, that's a fractal, and it's a mathematical sort of pattern that makes all very closely aligned with chaos theory. But what they believe is that if you take an image and you convert it into a fractal, that you will actually be able to pick up patterns that reflect the way nature actually works. Well, I think that personally this is highly spurious, but all you're doing is introducing more noise into your data. But anyway, a lot of people have done this, and they use this fractal analysis on the images, and then they use that as part of their, increasing the resolution of the images. Now, I don't believe that there's anything wrong with doing this if you just want to make better looking images. In fact, I have often used fractal imager myself to increase resolution in images. But it will give you a low resolution image and it effectively joins the dots in your picture and makes the whole thing look smoother. But in doing so, it has generated its own information. It has interpolated what it thinks should be between the dots. And sure, you'll get something that looks like it's got lots of detail in it, but it's all pure invention. And you can't really use that sort of thing doing proper scientific work. It makes images look very pretty, but there's no scientific value in it whatsoever. I do this myself at work. And much of the fine detail that is apparent in these images was never there in the originals. It has been introduced as a result of image processing. It should come as no surprise if a lot of this information then is artificial, because that's precisely what it is. It's artificially generated in the computer. This explains, I think, one of the big differences between the reactions that you had with people such as Richard Hoagland's team and the people who are far more cautious working at JPL. They looked at the face and said, well, this is really interesting, but we'll wait for high resolution images. While Richard Hoagland and his team got stuck in and processed away and started to see all sorts of detail in images, started measuring angles and talking about angles far more accurately measured than could ever possibly have been done on the original images, and making all sorts of pronouncements about artificiality. Just can't do that. It's just, why not? Because the information was never there in the original images. You've interpolated it, you've invented it yourself, you've made up your own evidence, and then So what do you mean, that the Mars Global Surveyor image was made up?
That's the Mars Global Surveyor image. The Richard Hoagland work is quite extensive and quite in-depth.
Well, it appears to be on the surface, certainly.
Talking with over 9 years worth of experience in the United Nations with support of a team of scientists across the globe, how can you just put that down? I think maybe, with respect to your 22 years of experience and research, I think there's truth under vibration. What you're telling me just doesn't link.
You don't believe that you can interpolate data?
We all know with computer technology, you can plug up images. We all know that. It's not doctoring images.
It's done every day, yes.
Yeah. We're talking about mathematics.
Yes.
And angles.
Yes.
That relate to monuments that are both not only on Mars, but also here.
Yes, but when you start talking, you're starting to talk about this topography business and angles and things. Now, the angles that they measured on the Mars features were not measured from the original Viking images. They will measure some of these processed up, with zoomed in and subject to fractal analysis and all sorts of bits and pieces that entered into the data that was never there originally. And so when you're looking at the angles of these things, you can't measure those angles as accurately as they maintain because the resolution was never there in the original images. So, because the original images had a particular resolution, and they're talking in terms that couldn't possibly be measured with the original. Well, I've shown you some pictures that show. How do we know that real from what perspective?
How can you try and display recovery, from an idea that's done by a lot of different scientists around the world of different
very few scientists would back up what Richard Hoagland has to say. And I know he has a lot of people that he claims support his arguments, but most of them are talking outside the topic of expertise. And you find that, if you go to JPL and ask anybody there, they won't back up what Richard Hoagland's team says about the images. And these are the people that are really trained to look at planetary images. They're trained in the interpretation of this data. They know the limitations of the equipment. They're not playing around with images that have been fudged and massaged and smoothed and, beyond almost all recognition of the originals. And this is the mistake that is made and overlooked by a lot of people like Stanley McDaniel, for example, who might be fine when he's talking about philosophy. But when he starts talking about the likelihood of certain things, being artificial or natural, he's really talking outside of his field of expertise. And yes.
Sorry if I think it's a busy turn, I'm not interested in photography and analysis.
Yes.
But when the individuals spoke about all those Ritos and all those little
Yes.
sections,
Yes.
And they were removed?
They were removed through processing, yes.
And what were they replaced with?
They were replaced with the computer's interpolation between the grayscale. So what it basically did was it said anything that's above or below a particular grayscale value, ignore that and replace it with this value.
Okay, so the computer guessed what that was.
That's right. That's right. But really it's a hole in the data, and we've just taken the best guess as to what's there.
Replaced by something that's not really there, so the computer guessed.
Yes. But then you can't actually make a lot of the statements that are being made based on this information, given the amount of noise that was in the original images. But they're not necessarily 90 degrees. And this is the point that I'm making, that you couldn't make those sorts of measurements on the original data because the resolution wasn't high enough. All of that has been done on these images that have been processed beyond all recognition. So really, you're talking about, measurements of far, there should be enormous error bars on all those measurements. And when you look at the data that they put up, there's never an error bar on it. I mean, they can't even determine whether they're talking about 19.5 or 19.47 degrees. Now, yet they place all sorts of cosmic significance on it. Now I don't know of a cosmically significant number that would have such a large margin of error built into it. It's really nonsense. Yes.
Let's talk about angles, which are really geometric things. look at the state, or is it of some of the things everybody taking action about the legislative house.
Well, welcome to the stream. This is a VHS tape, and it's from a Sydney UFO conference, and maybe about 10 people have seen it. Sorry for the audio. We're just gonna work through it, okay?
I don't know that anybody actually has, and I certainly haven't done this myself. But I think if we have a good look, and we might put back that original image, if we could, just put up the original, the higher resolution one. So that was the darker grey one, in 070, no, not that one. So the original Viking one, the 07813, I think it is. That was the highest resolution image. So it's the big picture where Sardinia, of the whole region, and the faces of this tiny little thing in it. No, stay up. Move it up here. It's down very much. Everyone. So the big picture. That's it. Okay, so if we have a look at this again, this was the highest resolution Viking image taken of the region. And this had a resolution of 43 meters. So the camera didn't actually record any data that was anything on the surface that was smaller than 43 meters across. The latest image, the Mars Global Surveyor one, the MGS one, has a resolution of 4.3 meters. So we basically now have the opportunity to look at this thing with 10 times magnification on this. But taking this image, blowing it up 10 times, doesn't give you anywhere near the same sort of resolution that we get in this particular image. And I think that that's quite clear when we see the best, or compare the best image that anybody's been able to get of the face, taken from the global, from the Viking scenes, and all you ever see is just very large sort of blobby pits. There's no fine detail there at all. Whereas in the Global Surveyor one, you can see when you look at the eye socket area here, you can see that there's no actual carving there. It actually is a crater. We can see what appear to be hydrothermal vents in the nose, but you can see that the nose isn't in the centre of the face. The centre of the face is, probably shouldn't do that. The centre of the face runs down here, but there's not that bilateral symmetry that they talked about. You can't actually see symmetry in the facial features at all. There's no symmetry between the sides of the face and the mouth. The nose is actually open to one side of the face, it's not in the centre. And there's no real eye socket at all on the other side of the face. So that symmetry that they maintain goes, absolute proof of the artificiality of this thing when we see the high resolution image. It's just not there. That symmetry just disappears. Now, one of the important points that I wanted to make about all of this is that these same people are using exactly the same techniques again to look at what they call lunar anomalies. And they've basically given up on Mars now because they've realised that all the things they've been saying for the last 10, 15 years are actually wrong. So they've turned their attention to the moon, and they're going through exactly the same processes with lunar images, and I've seen pictures put up on websites and so on by Richard Hoagland and some of the other researchers associated with him, where they've taken images, Clementine images and lunar orbit images, and they've blown them way out of proportion, and they're talking about being able to sort of structure in objects that are only 1 or 2 pixels across. Now, you can't see structure in a pixel, but that's exactly what you're trying to do instead. So it was very important to the height of the orbiter, and sometimes you can get down to some of the more recent images taken with Clementine. You actually have some quite high resolution images. Off the top of my head, I can't really remember exactly what the resolution is, but it's really quite high, probably less than 10 metres. With some of the other earlier Apollo images, of course, which is where they're doing a lot of their work, they're doing on the Apollo orbiter images. Now, this is once again, they're taking it from the old Vidicon camera data. They're not using the latest Clementine data, which is specifically, the information is already in a format that's readily acceptable for our modern day computer processing. So they really haven't learned the lessons. They're going back to the older data. Sometimes they're even doing it by scanning in hard copy images. So they take a flatbed scanner and then get a massive photo and then scan it in at 600 dpi, which is what the average commercial scanner will scan at, and then they boost it up in a program like Photoshop, and everything else is pure interpolation. And yet, there's a whole host of analysis supposedly being done on these images, and the internet is full of stuff, literally full of it, and all sorts of weird and wonderful claims being made about it. We have claims about there being glass domes on the moon and buildings, and I've even heard of one guy who maintains that he's able to see graffiti on paper walls. Now, these people take all of this seriously, and they look at these images, and I've seen their images, they usually convert the things to JPEGs, so they're full of all sorts of artifacts, JPEG artifacts, because they're using a high compression image type, and a whole host of information is lost. And there's all sorts of claims being made based on this sort of supposed research. And no scientist worth his salt would, be caught dead doing that sort of stuff. Yes, but they're designed for a different purpose. And the other thing with the spy, I've had this put to me before, that with the spy satellites, that supposedly can read a newspaper or read your car number plate from orbit and all that sort of stuff. Well, I don't quite know that I believe all of that. But, I know that it has been used spectral analysis to look for, tanks in the desert sands of Iraq and so on. And I've had that thrown up to me, so if you can use spectral analysis to identify tanks in Iraq, why can't you use spectral analysis to identify artificial structures on Mars? And the simple reason is that you know what a tank looks like to begin with, so you can put in a pattern for a tank. So this is the factual pattern for a tank. Go look for this particular mathematical pattern in the data. And when you find it, then you'll find our tank. But we don't know what anything on Mars or the Moon actually looks like. We can't input a data pattern and say, look for this pattern in the data. So that's a completely spurious sort of argument. And the sky satellite technology is not what NASA uses for these planetary images. Although with the Clementine Ring military satellite, but its images are freely available now. Anybody that wishes to can get hold of the Clementine data where it's available over the internet. I think you can even buy it on CD or something now. I think they wanted to get more data about it. The Moon has an extremely strategical value. Has an extremely high strategical value. And, they want to map the surface of the Moon as accurately as possible. And believe it or not, even with all the missions that we have sent to the Moon, we haven't completely mapped the surface of the Moon. And there are still areas that are subject to, great holes still in our mapping of the Moon, such that amateur astronomers can still be used to fill in the data. Sorry? Well, the far side of the Moon. Oh yes, we've had, every time an orbit has been around there, it's been as much around the dark or the far side as it has the near side. Well, we really needed to get a better look, because the technique that we now have the technology to be able to hold that data in storage, whereas before we couldn't necessarily transmit the images back from the other side. So now, of course, we have much improved technology on all of that, so we can store that data and transmit it when it comes back. But I can't see why the military wouldn't want to image the Moon. I think that would make normal sense. Why? So if you can put up, say, in terms of an SDI sort of installation, the Moon would be a very useful place to have an SDI base. It's also extremely valuable for communications, and there would be quite a few other research values to the Moon. But I don't believe that the military would necessarily be more interested in more esoteric research things. But then a whole host of other technologies usually spin off from space-related technologies and developments. How are we going to time? I won't spend too much longer on this, but I would like to talk about some of the things that, the lessons that we can extract from all of this and relate it to work that we can do on images with UFO photos, because I know that there are an awful lot of people out there now who have the technology sitting in their homes to take images of UFOs. We've looked at some of the video footage that's been around now. People are taking still photos. You can download this stuff off the internet, so it's all over the place. And people have the application sitting on their hardware at home, and they start fooling around with image analysis. And I know quite a few people who are making the mistake of using fractal imaging to look at UFO photos. And they're falling into the same sort of trap that the Cydonia images or Cydonia researchers fell into, where they're generating data and then researching, the data that they've generated, rather than looking at what is actually there in the original image data. So I've just listed a few little lessons here. I think the most obvious is that pictures can be deceptive and things are not always as they appear. It requires a special understanding of the limits and appropriate applications of your technology to make an educated interpretation of your data. Image interpretation requires a thorough knowledge and understanding of the techniques involved in any processing or enhancement the image undergoes, in addition to taking into account the peculiarities of the instrument with which the image was acquired. And this is something that most people don't do. This applies equally well to photographs or movies taken with ordinary cameras or video and movie cameras. The second lesson is that you cannot extract more information from your data or image than is present in the original. There is no additional data hidden between the pixels of any image. And I've had people say that to me. You know, what's wrong with boosting up the resolution of the image? You know, by in a program called like Photoshop or something like that, where you just got to reduce the image size from 100 pixels across to 1,000 pixels across. You know, what is wrong with that? Well, what's wrong with that is that you are asking the computer to fill in all that additional data, and it's just guessing at it. And then you're taking that, you know, data and applying your own sort of processes and things to it. You're analysing data that was never there in the first place. There is no data recorded between the pixels. And there is no data recorded for something 10 metres across in an image with a resolution of 43 metres. Simply using a processing algorithm to boost the resolution does not extract more data from the original data set. It employs pure interpolation and introduces processing artifacts which do not necessarily represent anything real. This means that the more processing an image is subjected to, the less reliable the information it contains becomes. This is an important point to bear in mind when looking at computer enhancements of UFO photos. I know of several people who convert photos to fractals for analysis. This process is probably the most dangerous of them all, as it relies on the software's ability to impose certain mathematical patterns on a data set. This generates even more curious artifacts than simple interpolation. It is one thing to ask a computer to identify its taken in its hand, and another to ask it to interpret geological formations on other planets, or even, dare I say it, flying saucers. After all, we know what the tank looks like to begin with, and I made that point before. Anybody with a computer and the right software can process an image, but that does not make that person qualified to interpret the image. And I'd like to make a point here by comparing the use of a screwdriver and a wrench, because both of them are quite useful tools within their design parameters, but you cannot expect to undo a screw with a wrench. But in many respects, this is what a lot of people are doing. They're applying the wrong tool or an inappropriate technology to their research. And finally, and probably the most important lesson concerns the power of belief over the rational mind. A whole mythology has sprung up around Cydonia, based on what was always very tenuous evidence, a couple of very poor quality, low resolution images. Otherwise intelligent and rational people wanted the features of Cydonia to be artificial so much that they manufactured their own evidence and then forgot that they had made it. Worse still, they branded anyone who dared to raise a dissenting voice as a debunker or part of a conspiracy to hide the truth. Sometimes there is no conspiracy. Sometimes the Sphinx is a geological formation, and its real riddle is how we could ever have ignored everyone and everything that told us so. And I think the most important lesson here is about when you start looking at an image or at any particular data set, and you start trying to find evidence within it to support your belief system. When you do that, you're not conducting science. You know, you're deceiving yourself. And I think that this is something that we as UFO researchers really have to be very careful of. That so often we hear people say they're so convinced that we're being visited by ET that, you know, they ignore any evidence that suggests otherwise. And we've probably all heard of all the conspiracy theories that have been around. And, you know, one of the most prominent earlier this year was the supposed conspiracy within NASA. Although I don't know how you could get all those scientists to be involved in anything like that. Well, the scientists that I know would never commit to anything like that. You just couldn't get them to do that. There's also a lesson, I think, in consulting with and listening to those people who are in a position to make educated identifications of things. And I'd just like to finish up with what I finished up with here in my paper, and that is that just a little word about that video program, UFOs, the Best Evidence Ever Caught on Tape. There was an awful lot of video footage included in that showed nothing more than lights in the sky. In particular, I noticed the Mexican videos taken at the time of the solar eclipse. That was back in 1991, I think it was. I hadn't actually seen these videos until that program was shown on TV the other week, or a couple of weeks ago. And the first thing that I noticed when it came to those eclipse videos was that they showed the sun, and then they panned across to this bright object in the sky nearby the sun. And for me, it was immediately apparent that it was Venus. No question in my mind whatsoever. And yet, you know, they don't seem to have even consulted with an astronomer as to what this object was likely to have been. Yes. No, I'm not saying that that was, but certainly, and over a large area. Now, the fact that certainly the object that they concentrated on most in that particular video sequence was definitely Venus. Now, this was seen over an area from cities as wide apart as 80 miles, I think they said, 80 kilometres. I mean, that's a pretty broad area. This object had to be extremely high up. And it was high up, it was Venus. It was millions of kilometres away. So that's not the same object. That was a different video.
And they had no doubt at all that what they completed. They had no idea that people were falling you apart.
Yes, and you know, this was one of the really sad things that this stuff is frequently being touted around as, well, it was being touted as the best evidence ever caught on tape. Now, there's much better evidence around, and it scares me that the people that put this thing together, and obviously the researchers that have been collecting this stuff, never bothered to consult with an astronomer about a light in the sky. And I know that this doesn't always happen, but it happens often enough. Yes, Martin? Yes, it was still put in that video, and you know, that does worry me, because obviously there are a lot of people that either don't care whether or not it's Venus, or you know, they just never bothered to research it properly. Anyway, but I really do think that that is one of the scariest aspects of that. And I would hope that you know, we do draw a few lessons from this that we can.
40 years of investigation of UFOs. I've investigated, I guess, close to 130 unknowns and countless identified flying objects, but the unknowns are the ones that we're interested in. And of those 130, 50 of them are close encounter reports of various types. And of the close encounters, 14 involve entity sightings. And finally, we get down to maybe 3 abduction reports.
and going around and talking to people who have reported seeing UFOs in this area, asking them if they'd ever seen the beings on board the craft. Oh yes, they all had. The beings were all beautiful, blonde men, 6 foot tall, wearing long white robes. And the doors of the UFO opened, and these beautiful men would say, "Welcome, my child, you have been blessed." And Bonnie and I came home and said, "That's not us."
And I brought with me some songs which come through, I understand, from space people, and they have a content which I would like to share with people, for I think there's a lot in it that you will understand when you hear. Thank you. Let's go down, we can work today, the power and the things that here to stay. When you do.
The Scott Ehrlich, head of the Space Flight Division of the American Rocket Society, he recently said, "Man must prepare soon to meet with intelligences of other solar systems." You know, there are many that feel that this has already happened. Now, with the voluminous file of photographic evidence that we have in hand, it is quite possible that they may be right.
Shortly after UFOs, flying discs or flying saucers, were widely reported in the press in the late 40s and early 50s. There came on the scene a number of people who, because of political or spiritual reasons, felt that aliens from another planet could help us out of our troubles. And whether they had a UFO experience or not, they felt that the kind of philosophy embodied by hopefully objective beings from somewhere else could solve our problems.
Beginning in the early 1950s in Southern California, a movement began centered on the idea that there were certain individuals who were in contact with benevolent extraterrestrials who were called Space Brothers. And among these people were most prominently George Adamski, in other words, Daniel Fry, Truman Bethurum, George Van Tassel, Orville Angelucci. These were individuals who claimed ongoing contacts with people from Mars, Venus, and Saturn, and other planets. these space brothers were human-like. They were actually better-looking, nicer versions of ourselves. They were here to save us from blowing ourselves up with atomic bombs.
After 1 year's investigation, I believe that the flying saucers seen by a veteran airline and Air Force pilot are objects from another planet. The Air Force itself has officially admitted that flying saucers exist. This statement appears in Project Saucer Case number 75. Not only that, the Air Force has officially analyzed the motives of possible visitors in space. Here is a direct quotation from the official report. Such a civilization might observe that on Earth we now have atomic bombs and are fast developing rockets. In the past history of mankind, they should be alarmed. We should therefore expect at this time above all to behold such visitation.
The Nevada Desert in America is the scene of the latest atomic test. International observers come by invitation to join scientists, military and civil defense authorities making a study of the test.
We were living in the shadow of the atomic bomb. Quite literally, it burst on the scene and nobody was able to comprehend the effects that it might have if unleashed in a worldwide scale. I mean, certainly that could happen today, but I guess like UFOs, we're inured to living in the atomic age. So back then it was new. And this meant that people had to rethink their philosophy of life and their philosophy of spirituality. And many people of this philosophical bent looked to the skies for help.
The space people like Fry, Adamski, Van Tassel, and others kind of encountered really were preaching an earthbound occult doctrine, which is known as theosophy. There was nothing particularly interesting about what they were saying, but it had enormous appeal to some people, and they had a small and committed following. Fry and the other people were essentially bringing flying saucers into a religious context. What the contact union represented was a religious response to the UFO phenomenon.
We had several different contacts. I had one of them at the Kansas City, Missouri on April 8, 1958, again in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
You mean that you met with these visitors again?
Yes.
I met with you and spoke with you?
Yes.
What the hell happened with that in that case, Mr. Smith? Would you tell the audience what it is?
Back to Oklahoma on April 14, 1958, I was picked up by one of these space visitors in their little MiG.
The Kentuckians were very popular. They seemed to have touched a nerve with the public at that time. And they had large followings in the 1950s. But their evidence for UFO experiences were a little questionable. Their photographs tended to be dubious. The more scientific ufologists always didn't care for them, thought they were simply trying to make a buck.
The big name in contact in the 50s was George Adamski. And he had been actually a spiritual teacher in maybe a kind of a mini guru as far back as 1939. And had, tinkered around with cameras as well, too. So when UFOs began in 1947, you might say, he took a lot of pictures of them. Probably fake pictures as we look back on it now. And he had like hundreds of them.
Now, when you produce a photograph of an alien or a spaceship, either you have a real photograph of an alien or a spaceship, or you consciously fabricate it. So, in the case of the physical contactees, it's a very simple question. Are these guys telling the truth, or are they lying? Are they consciously fraudulent?
Sid Patrick says that he has been aboard a flying saucer. And our first question, Sid, is what was this flying saucer like?
Well, to answer that, I would like to show the charts which I have provided for this this kind of answer.
Now, this is the spacecraft, is that right?
That is right. That's just the way it appeared as I was approaching it to go aboard, as they had asked me to come aboard. They had invited me aboard.
Is that the door at the bottom?
It is.
Having been aboard the spacecraft, Sid, can you tell us what the layout aboard the craft was?
Yes, I can. I have with me a chart which is in all respects identical to the lower floor. If this is the second floor, and it's in all respects the same with the exception of the consultation room. I might point out that in in the traveling through the craft, we went through a total of 14 rooms, and we saw 8 other persons, 7 more men and 1 lady.
My name is Chief Frank Buckshot Standing Horse. I am an Ottawa Indian. In 1959, on July the 12th, I took a trip in a flying saucer. This saucer, I went up to Mars, over the Moon, Venus, Clarion, and Orion. When I say Orion, I do not mean Orion. It is a planet outside of our galaxy. And I was gone 4 days and 4 nights and 2 half nights. The captain of the Via Omus, which is the name of this flying saucer, her name was Mandra Oika, a very beautiful woman. She gave me the age of 417 years old. That was in 1959. She was tall, dark complected, beautiful blue eyes, well shaped, and she certainly was blessed with beauty.
The early contactees were persons who claimed that they had been taken aboard UFOs, which they called flying saucers at that time, and that the occupants were fully human, beautiful, usually blonde, and sometimes a very nice-looking lady. And the contactee would engage in philosophical discussions, socio-economic discussions of all types.
The contactee was someone who reported having conscious discussions and meetings with aliens. Usually Venus was a typical place, Mars and maybe Jupiter or whatever.
They all met beautiful aliens, very friendly, came down, and they all warned humans that they must stop nuclear testing, must stop war, and they all had rather platitudinous philosophical messages.
When within a few feet of the craft, I went through an all-night experience that was showing things of the future of the civilization.
This is the center for the distribution of information coming to me telepathically from the space people.
While I was on the craft, they presented me with a little crystal stone. They told me it was called Martian jasper. This craft, by the way, was from the planet Mars.
You never made any contact with people inside the ship?
Not inside the ship, sir.
What does that mean?
Well, I have had a contact, but not inside the ship, and I prefer not to relate it in detail at this time.
Yes, I've seen her. Or rather, one of them came out. I only saw one.
Can you describe it?
Well, it looked like a she, about 7 feet tall, and had long flowing hair and an ebony black skin.
3 of our monks were on retreat up around Lake Tahoe. We were all sleeping in sleeping bags, and we all awakened right at the same time, about 3 o'clock in the morning, and saw a flying saucer go completely across the horizon. It was just a gorgeous sight. It was the first one we had ever seen.
At about this point, his friends would say, "Look, Joe, why don't you just go back to your hut and sleep it off? How can you expect us to follow all of this ridiculous nonsense? Everything you say is contrary to everything we know."
There is, in fact, forms of life. We don't know, and quite a few things on this planet we don't know of. So we learn only by experience. There are forms of life here on this planet that we don't think much about. That we become acquainted with them here without really realizing it.
In the 50s, contact with what passed for UFO people or aliens was pretty benevolent. You met your Roger Delusion in the desert, and they give you a taste of what it was like to be a space brother. But with Betty and Barney Hill case, which was the first abduction case to really take the popular consciousness by storm, things changed. The aliens became little guys who didn't look that human at all. and they did kind of crazy things to you, like take you on board their spacecraft and perform operations of a very mysterious and disturbing nature. That really was the turning point in ufological history because it paved the way for acceptance among ufologists and even among the general public that the UFOs were not only here, but they were here and wanted to do something to us.
The Betty Bonnie Hill abduction case, which occurred in 1961, but really didn't come to public attention until 64 or 65, when there was a magazine article on it in the book, was the first U.S. abduction case that the public and ufologists were aware of. It turns out now that there were many cases before that.
I'm Betty Hill, and my husband Bonnie and I were the first persons on this planet to have been abducted by astronauts from another solar system.
My very first UFO close encounter case was the Hill case back in 1961, which everybody's familiar with by now. That was a landmark case, or it turns out to be a landmark case, because it was the first publicized missing time abduction case. I didn't know it at the time, but it sort of set the standard for all the abductions to follow.
We saw what we thought was a new star in the sky. And at that point, it began to move and went across the face of the moon. So we stopped the car to get out to look at it, because now we know it's not a star, it's possibly a satellite. Bonnie decides to get out with the binoculars and attempt to identify this craft. He gets out, I stay in the car. He looks up at the craft and he sees human-like figures standing behind the window, looking down at him, and the craft began to descend. And he got the impression they were trying to capture him, trying to grab him. He ran back to the car. We went speeding down the highway to avoid capture. There was a series of beeping sounds. And then, for some unexplained reason, Bonnie left the main highway onto a secondary road, and we found ourselves next on the dirt road. Just before we got to the dirt road, we saw what we thought was the moon setting, and you could see the silhouette of trees in front of it. And then the dirt road, we could remember leaving the dirt road, finding our way back, and when we came into Ashland, back on the main highway, we heard the beeping sounds again, and we came home.
I was asked to drive to Portsmouth, New Hampshire, which I did, to interview the couple. Of course, this being a close encounter case, I'd never come up against one like this, or any before. I was skeptical. Although I think it's a good idea to be skeptical when you go into any of these cases. But after I was finished grilling them for 6 or 7 hours, I was very impressed with their story and with them as witnesses.
There were 11 of these bands that, for purposes of identification, we called one the leader, because he seemed to be in charge, and he was the one who spoke to us in English. Then there was the examiner, who did the testing, and then there were what we call crew members, because they stayed outside in the corridor. There were 9 of them. Now, both Bonnie's and my exams basically were very much similar. They checked our eyes, ears, nose, throat, took samples of our hair, scraping of our skin. Were very interested in our speech. And then with me, they put me on the table and tried to insert a needle-like instrument in my navel. He said it was a pregnancy test. And I'd say that was no pregnancy test, and it wasn't in those days. It was unheard of on this planet.
Betty, within 2 weeks of the encounter, had had a series of nightmares, very unusual dreams. And she alluded to the possibility that maybe the missing time that they had experienced on their trip home had something to do with the dreams. In the dreams, they drove off the main highway down side road in a heavily wooded area. They were stopped, and by alien entities, they were taken on board, examined, and then released. At the time, since we'd never run up against anything like this, I assumed that the first encounter on the highway was all there was to it. And that perhaps these were wishful fulfillment dreams or some such thing that Betty had. What if they had been kidnapped? What if it had happened further down the road? And her mind manufactured the rest of it. And by the way, Barney had no recall at all of the abduction at that point.
Is it true that Barney was closed-minded? This created quite a bit of emotional turmoil for him. And he began having health problems. Anxieties, fluctuating blood pressure, stomach problems and all. And he wasn't responding to medication. So this doctor thought maybe Barney had some kind of emotional hang up of some kind that was preventing him from getting back on his feet. So he sent Barney in to a psychiatrist who was in the same building he was in. And Barney started going to the psychiatrist on a regular basis, talking about his early childhood and all. And one time Barney went in and the psychiatrist said, Barney, well, what did you do this weekend? And Barney told me what the money terms were taken for this spot. So we began questioning Barney about this, and as a result, literally both Barney and me, the doctor Benjamin Simon.
Both of them, 3 years later, were hypnotized by Dr. Benjamin Simon in Boston. And both had abduction scenarios, as we all know.
I can see it in his face. I can see how it feels. It's just telling him, don't be afraid. Stay there. You keep looking. Sit there and tell you, oh no, he didn't say it. You got to say, I know. I'll take you by the hand. All right. Hold it up. Look away. God, give me time. All right. Hold it down. Hold it down.
I'm such a case. This has been quite an experience that no one would ever believe me. And what I needed was some proof that this stuff really happened. He laughed. When he come back, he came to me, work out something, and he said, I don't know. It's not my decision to make. If we decide to come back, we'll be able to find it all right. Well, I said, but I don't live around here. I don't live in this area. And he said, we'll find you like a cow. How will you find me? I'll name the people. And he said, we will. We only can find what we want to. And I said, well, now what do you mean by that we want? Then he goes, flash.
I have a special interest in one aspect of this since my field is astronomy. After one of the hypnosis sessions, Betty drew from memory a sketch of a star map that her guide or the leader aboard the UFO showed to her. Actually, it was not a two-dimensional map at all, but more like a three-dimensional hologram.
I don't know if there's an opening in the wall or just like, but all of a sudden just the map. It didn't pull down or anything like that. And it was probably about 2 by 3 feet. And it was almost, it was so realistic, it was almost like looking at the sky. And even some of the objects even seemed to be slowly moving. He asked me if I knew where we were on the map, and I told him no. And he said, well, if I didn't know any basic information, then it would be impossible for him to show me where they were from. And with that, he put the star map
push something and the map was gone.
The two largest stars appeared to be just objects in the foreground, therefore they showed up large. And these appeared to be the base stars. There were heavy lines running between these two stars, indicating heavy traffic trade routes. In fact, the leader explained it that way. There were solid lines going out to several other stars where they apparently traveled, and then dotted lines or dashed lines going to others, which were remote outposts, one visit to these stars or less frequent visits. Years later, Marjorie Fish, an Ohio school teacher, decided to take the star map and to see if it matched reality, to see if there really was a 12-star pattern like this in the heavens.
Now, later, in the research of the star map, I was contacted by a school. At that time, she was a school teacher by the name of Marjorie Fish in Ohio. And we wrote back and forth several times. And then she said she'd like to come here and talk to me in greater detail about the star map. And she spent several days with me, asked me numerous questions. And when she went home, she started building models. She took boxes, strings. And she started out and she put our solar system in the middle and started working out so many light years.
So over a period of 6 years, she built three-dimensional models of the sun's neighborhood of stars, moving never outward.
And when she had finished, she had almost all the same stars in the same pattern that I had in the star map, except two were missing. And so she wasn't able to complete the research until our astronomers found these two stars in 1969.
She had expected in the beginning to come up with random, easily duplicate random patterns that they would show up quite often, looking like Betty Hills, but that was not the case. She didn't find any until the 6th year. And she discovered it by lying on her back on the floor, looking up at an odd angle. A whole 12-star pattern flashed into view. All the stars had been identified, and making it even less likely that this is a random choice. All 12 stars that are hooked up by solid lines or dashed lines turn out to be live candidate stars. They have spectra that are very similar to our own sun. They are good candidates for planets, and the planets in turn would be good candidates for life. So what is the likelihood of finding 12 stars connected in this manner in this huge volume of space with 100 or more stars? And only these are the life candidate stars in this volume, and all of them have been connected as if visited by these intelligences.
Of course, the Betty Barnett Hill case is one of the most significant cases in UFO research in general, let alone in terms of abduction cases. The reason why I feel that that's an honest remark on my point is that the Hill case occurred early enough in UFO phenomena that the people doing the reporting of Betty and Barnett were not what we would call idea or concept polluted. There had not been a lot of imagery in the field that would suggest some of the things that they talked about. Also, there are other intriguing aspects of the Hill case, namely it was done by an outstanding hypnotist who knew his job. Also, the fact that there were two people who apparently gave at least partially independent testimony that was corroborated, and then, of course, the famous star map aspect of the case. The fact that Betty Hill's testimony seems to still make a certain degree of logical sense, and the story flows kind of consistently from one end to another, sets it as one of the real classic cases of ufology, and something that is not even dismissed by the skeptics, no matter what they would like to think.
It was an interesting conjunction of affairs. If Barney Hill had not responded as in a sense badly as he did to the experience, and did not have so many, let's say, psychological problems, sleep disturbances, ulcer problems, and so forth afterwards, he wouldn't have gotten to a doctor. And it had to be a particular doctor who would send him to a psychiatrist who would look for a buried trauma. There's a series of interesting coincidences and accidents that brought the very first case out. And at any step of the way, that certain things hadn't happened the way they did exactly medically, in terms of good investigators looking into it, Walter Webb and others. It might have taken another decade before these things came to light.
Bud Hopkins and I talked about how to work with children, and kind of simultaneously we both had an idea of doing some kind of like what you'd have with a police lineup, and you show kids a bunch of cards and get their reactions to different pictures. And he went ahead and had developed by an artist a series of drawings like a policeman, Batman, a little girl, and a skull, and a witch, and the Ninja Turtle, and then an alien face. Also a skull, because that's similar, but it's not the same. And the idea of the test, we can use it a number of different ways. One, we can just see if there's any reaction from the child. Two, we can have the child tell a story about each one. Or to save time, you may have the child pick two and tell a story about each one.
So I show a set of 10 drawings to the child in the context of playing with the child. It's always a game. And I show them Santa Claus, Batman, etc. And the basic question is just, do you know who these people are, what these are?
What you get then is a projective test. However, if there are things perhaps going on with the child, he's likely to use details which either consciously or subconsciously are available to him. It's an interesting test without really digging in or telling the child what he thinks going on, just to see what comes up.
Recently, an example, working with a 3.5-year-old child whose mother's a psychiatrist. And another psychiatrist, friend of the family, was administering the test to the girl. And this was King. And she went through just very simple Santa Claus, Batman, policeman, came to the alien. He said, that's the man who comes in my room at night. And he comes in and we throw it out the window and we go up a blue light. And we go up into this room. And she said, and Mommy, you're up there sometimes. I've seen you on a table and you haven't had any clothes on. Mother, of course, pretty much had a difficult time handling it.
He has interviewed 140 people who have been abducted, and their amazing and frightening stories are recorded in his new book. It's called Intruders, The Incredible Visitations at Copley Woods. Please welcome Bud Hopkins.
A psychologist friend of mine asked me would I like to meet Bud Hopkins. And she explained that he was interested in people who believed that they had been abducted onto UFOs. And my reaction to that was that this is ridiculous. He must be some sort of strange person. And she said, no, he takes it very seriously.
Bud Hopkins, of course, is the fellow whose name is most associated with ufology and abduction. So many people may say, Whitley Strieber because of his best-known book, but we'll talk about Bud first. He's an artist. His husband was in Manhattan and got involved in abduction cases in the mid to late 70s and has written 2 books on the subject and now spends essentially all of his time looking into abduction cases. He got involved because it was chance. And basically, he looked into a case that turned out to be an abduction case. He was fascinated by it. He decided to stick with it. One of the reasons nobody else was looking into them.
There are, of course, many people who are interested in doing research on abduction in this country. That's kind of natural because that is one area in ufology where you have a chance to interact with at least part of the experience, namely the experience observed, on a continuing basis and on a basis which might ultimately lead to some concrete information that is a little bit under the control of the researchers. So we have people like Bud Hopkins, of course, the most famous UFO researcher, let alone abduction researcher in the world. And my opinion of Bud's work
for the modern study of UFO abduction. What we do is, in effect, a de facto kind of therapy. No, we're not therapists, and we're not trained, but many of the people are trained. Dr. Mack, of course, is brilliantly trained, but lots of people who work in this field, or at least some, haven't that much training. We've had to improvise because we are helping people through these experiences, which are extraordinarily traumatic. The basic thing about working with, let's say, a professional therapist working with a Vietnam vet who's suffering from PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, at least they can assure that vet that the war is over. They're not in the war anymore. I mean, the memories are there, but they're not in it. But I can't assure any abductee that they're out of the war.
What struck me about these individuals was how ordinary they were. I mean, they're very nice people, very interesting, but not from a psychiatric point of view particularly remarkable. They weren't, again, people that had an axe to grind or seemed to have some particular self-promoting aspect to them. They were just people to whom this, as they described it, rather extraordinary phenomenon had happened.
The Kathy Davis case is another important case in on Hopkins intruders. Kathy Davis also has had a string of encounters over the years. But the one that I think is most impressive to me is the 1983 episode. One of the few examples of an abduction case where physical traces were left behind.
The soil there was totally changed. Within a couple of days, it was very clear all the grass had died and the soil had been baked into a rock-like hardness that has not been duplicated in the laboratory yet. Taking control soil, we don't know what kind of energy was brought to bear to seal and kill the soil in a certain way. But most important, the next door neighbor saw through the trees at the moment that this the abduction apparently ended. She saw a gigantic flash just exactly in that spot. And some object started to come over her house, making a roaring sound, which was interfering with the electricity. She was in a total panic. She thought there was perhaps an earthquake happening. The lights began to flicker, and finally all the lights went out. Interesting that the screen of the television set, color television, went red. The other television dropped out.
Two neighbors heard a roar about the same time as this encounter happened. Their houses shook. They had electrical malfunctions. Plus, before hypnosis, Kathy had a conscious memory of the landed UFO.
The Kathy Davis case was the most important case that I've worked on, simply because it did establish once and for all the central focus of the abduction phenomenon upon reproductive issues, genetic issues. When she finally told me that there was this disappeared pregnancy without any sign of miscarriage connected with an abduction experience, it immediately rang a few bells in me, in my memory, with other cases where I had deliberately looked the other way when apparently reproductive subjects, aspects of the physical exam were being reported.
One of the reasons why allegedly aliens are taking people, particularly, well, both men and women really, is to get genetic samples of their actual sperms and eggs. Now, on the surface, this doesn't make much sense. In fact, genetically, biologically, I can't think of hardly any reason why they would be doing this. But, okay, nevertheless, not only do they seem to take such samples, but sometimes women report what we call false pregnancy, which is that they are literally pregnant, and they think the pregnancy was induced by these creatures. And then after, let's say, 2 or 3 months, they have an abduction where the baby is removed from their womb, and the next day they get up and, there's no pregnancy. It's gone. The doctor can't explain it.
That's something like 4 or 5 cases where women have described experiences at the age of 4 years old or 5 years old, a needle going into the abdomen region of the ovary and another needle simultaneously going in the vagina. And these are tiny little girls who are, through the ova are there, but they're not mature. But sperm samples are taken from men, etc. Now this is going up through obviously after puberty, and then that person may be re-abducted at intervals for the next many years. When I got these cases over and over again, I found myself feeling a little uncomfortable around it. And the Kathy Davis case focused very directly on the idea that she had been somehow used in some way in some kind of very clinical experiment having to do with reproduction. And at this point, we're looking for a case where a woman, for instance, went to bed 7 months pregnant and woke up in the morning after the room filled with a blue light, and she was quite terrified. She woke up in the morning with no baby and no sign of a miscarriage. And a 7-month-old fetus does not disappear overnight without any sign of a miscarriage. I have just dozens and dozens and dozens of cases. But this establishes what I think is the central purpose of the whole thing. There's some kind of attempt to create some sort of hybrid creature or race or species or who knows what to call it.
Well, you've investigated 145 of these cases. Other investigators have investigated a great number of others. We know now hundreds and hundreds of these cases in a number of different countries. We get the impression that this is a widespread phenomenon. How widespread? Well, it was extremely widespread. The numbers are just staggering in implications. I mean, we're talking about thousands upon thousands upon thousands of people. And the reason I can say that is that in any kind of just simple sample, like a radio program, a call-in program, in which case we've been able to follow up with some of the people, and we have some estimate of what the audience is of this program, and the number of people who will respond, and let's say, when we put in the program, 12 people will turn up from a fairly widely played radio program. We're putting this kind of thing, and we can look into even further, and in those cases, when we check out, and these are classic abduction cases, the numbers have to be absolutely gigantic.
One of the things that I think is very important is that the phenomenon is recognized as being as important as it is. The range of numbers of people that are thought to have had this experience is from like 100,000 to 1 million in this country alone.
I think while it's unwise to put any number on how many abduction experiences there have been, I think any estimates that go well above thousands are not justified whatsoever by the current amount of data we have. On the other hand, we know we can say that we have hundreds of them because we definitely do. We have hundreds of them. So my guess is that somewhere in the thousands, low thousands, is what I would want to propose.
Let's assume that somebody said 1% of the population. Well, we have, 250 million people. That's a lot of people just to start with. If you imagine 10% of the population, you've got 25 million people. Somewhere in these numbers, I think you may find the correct percentage. It's absolutely staggering. I don't know what the numbers are, but they're going to be a lot larger than anybody imagines.
I would say that it does seem likely that there is a very large number. But first we found Barney and Betty Hill. We thought that was a unique phenomenon. 10 years later, we started finding more and more cases, and the thing has snowballed ever since. So finally, investigators are overwhelmed. So it does seem like there is a vast number of cases, and the accurate estimate is going to take a lot more work.
I don't think that we really have enough information to make a judgment on how many people believe they've had abduction experiences. I think that to get some sense of what the numbers are, we're going to have to do a formal survey. My guess is that the higher the number, the more likely we are dealing with some kind of psychological experience. The lower the number, the more probable the interpretation that we're really dealing with some kind of event-level experiment experience.
I did a study of UFO abductions called UFO Abductions, the Measure of a Mystery. It was sponsored by the Fund for UFO Research. It was originally intended to be a catalog of the abduction cases in the literature, simply a way of bringing together what had become a rather scattered and extensive literature. I was able to find about 300 cases in the literature.
The abduction phenomenon, I think it's a phenomenon, because you have a body of testimony from people who seem sincere and sane, describing the same sorts of events down to really small details. In other words, this does not seem to be a collection of random fantasies, but an actual phenomenon that's somewhat lawful. When you have something like that, you immediately begin an investigation. That's where you start. If you can establish that something is happening, something that has certain features that manifest consistently wherever they happen, wherever in the world, you have something to work with. And from there, you can go looking for physical evidence, multiple witnesses, and all those sorts of things.
The UFO abduction phenomenon, taken in its most strictest sense, is a recent phenomenon. The cases that have gone on record started, as a public phenomenon with the Gulf case in 1966, but there was an earlier case in 1957, and a few possible cases from the 1950s. It's only about the mid-1970s that a fair number of cases start coming out. Now, there may be two reasons for this. One suggestion has been that, well, once the story started becoming popular, a lot of people wanted to join in the bandwagon. Another is that people have had these experiences all along, they just didn't know who to tell, and they didn't, in some cases, didn't even know what had happened to them. They were just sort of sitting on this mysterious experience. Finally, they heard of some other cases, recognized their own experience, and then knew who to tell, and that's the floodgates opened and these stories started coming out.
The reason the cases are now becoming public commonly is because the material is getting out into, let's say, general public awareness, thanks to books and films and TV and so forth. So there is a kind of channel by which people can report, channel's a bad word, conduit by which people can report their cases.
The physical evidence for the abduction takes any number of forms. One, you get physical after effects. People may be sick, they may immediately after, they may have eye irritation. That's a common after a sequel of the abduction. One very commonly cited bit of evidence is a form of scar.
And then, of course, we have the patterns of the scars on people, which essentially boil down to two different types: a long, straight line, thin, scalpel-like cut. And we have, of course, the round, what we call scoop marks. It's a little indentation, as if a layer of cells has just been left out. And those turn out over and over again in these cases. And they are generally in the same kinds of places on the body. And they look exactly the same, and people have the same kind of uneasiness about these.
If the abduction events are real and people are actually examined in the way they're described, then there might be physical effects left on their body, scars and so forth. If people describe things from its place in their body, they describe cuts made to take out tissue samples and so forth. Now, some abductees have full scars and marks on their body. The question is, what's the cause and what's the effect? What came first, the memory, the scar, and so forth? The most interesting are scars that the abductee allegedly was unaware of until after hypnosis. There are cases that I've heard of from Bud Hopkins where the abductees will, under hypnosis, remember a procedure, let's say, in the back of their knee, which is a place most people don't look too often. They'll then look at the back of their knee and they'll find perhaps a scar, maybe this long, a little scoop mark.
Now, there's physical evidence explained, such as scars and other kinds of marks on the body. I am not overly impressed with that particular aspect of the evidence. All human beings, I think almost without exception, have not lived in crystal glass cages all their life, and they have little scars on their bodies. Things happen. You don't necessarily have recollection to these minor injuries, but you still, in fact, can leave a noticeable scar. I think that type of evidence is soft at this point. Now, in terms of implants, there we have the opposite situation.
We have studying several objects which have come out of people's bodies that shouldn't be there. The nature of these objects is not clear cut as to, let's say, they don't have the bells and whistles and they're not beeping and transmitting and doing things that we might think an extraterrestrial implant should be doing. But they are very unusual in many respects. They seem to have a lot of organic elements in them. We don't know, we cannot establish that these things so far are totally beyond believability as belonging to Earth. They shouldn't be in the places that they're found.
One of the chances that the so-called aliens somehow track people by leaving these implants in them, and some of the way we track animals that we leave implants in them, we can find them again later on, and that's the way they come back and just go and find the person again. I don't know. In a number of cases, there are allegations that there's physical evidence associated with the experience of phantom pregnancies, scars, marks, implants, those sorts of things. We're very early in the investigation of these sorts of things, and the documentation so far is slight. In other words, we don't really have a good medical case history of a phantom pregnancy. We have a lot of allegations, and people seem sincere, but we don't have the documentation. Some alleged implants are being found and studied quietly by well-qualified scientists in laboratories. And in one or two cases, I think they found something quite interesting. But again, this, like so much else involved in infection studies, in its infancy. The really interesting discoveries will be coming in the next months and years.
The geography of abductions is predominated by North America. Most of the cases have come from there. The second largest number come from England. We get a fair number of cases out of South America, some from Australia and New Zealand. Very few from continental Europe, and none that I know of from Asia. The stories from one country or another are largely the same. There are a few differences. In England, they tend to find different, describe the beings in different ways than they do in America, but by and large, the stories are pretty much the same.
We're used to the North American type of little gray guys that even Betty and Barney Hill were involved with, and certainly Whitley Strieber saw, and many of Hopkins' cases involved very skinny entities with large heads, big eyes. We're all kind of used to that. But what kind of gets shoved under the table because we have a North American bias is the fact that in England, many of the abduction cases there involve very human-like beings, but they're Nordic looking, and they often have long beards and long flowing robes. So you have a Nordic type, and they don't look like the little gray guys at all, but they're doing the same kind of abduction things, like taking people on board involuntarily and subjecting them to medical tests. In some cases, these robed people, kind of like Merlin almost, are working in conjunction with another alien type, which seems to be some kind of drone that doesn't look like the North American little gray guys, but nonetheless, they're just as stupid and ugly. These kind of things come into prominence in Latin America as the major abductors. And so you see a cultural bias here.
A major rejection of the UFO phenomenon has been that UFOs can't be real because when people report them and their occupants, they say their occupants have a humanoid form. Head, eyes, and face, more or less as we have them, and then a torso, two arm-like objects, two leg-like objects, humanoid form, usually not looking exactly like us, but we recognize what all the parts are about.
The entities were described as about 5 foot tall. They were slender, with slender heads, which matched, the rest of their slender bodies. Completely clothed in dark garments, which simply ensure thermal insulation from our atmosphere. And the faces were not seen because they too were hidden behind part of the garment.
Some things are losers and some things are winners in the design game of life. And we have found out through 4 billion years of earthly experimentation by Mother Nature what the winning design is. The design features have to have this head end, all of these sense receptors up there close to the brain, the food intake is there, it goes down a long tube, it's processed, it goes into some kind of a fluid system. That fluid system must be pumped. It cannot go by osmosis. There has to be a branching circulatory system. There has to be some kind of a pump in there to move it around. This thing is also going to end up, if it's ambulatory, technical, having a certain number of limbs.
The other type of entity was the more typical type that you think of when you think of UFO abduction. The pasty skin, the whitish gray, spindly body type, which is about 4 feet tall, with an overlarge head and tremendously large hypnotic eyes.
Humanoid form is going to be something that is a logical potential development on many, many worlds. It's not something that's random. You're not going to expect to walk up and shake hands with a pancake the first time you see something in outer space. The arguments with UFO phenomena are automatically to be rejected as far as any new extraterrestrial that people report humanoid life forms is unfortunately ignorant baloney at this stage.
Ah, here's a nice little house. Smoke coming from the chimney. Probably one of those old-fashioned fireplaces. Good morning, sir. I said, good morning, sir. 4 eyes and 4 days. Not much resemblance to my chart. Let's look around some more. Well, this is more like it. Wowee. How do you do, sir? I'm B-Bat Bobat. I'm here to demonstrate. George!
We're speaking with Mrs. Linda Soul and family from Nacogdoches, Texas. Mrs. Soul, why have you come to Fort Smith to this UFO convention?
Because I'm interested in UFOs and I wanted to see what all the speakers had to present, different ideas, how objective it was.
Yeah, you told me a little earlier that you have seen UFOs. Is this true?
And there was another major school of contactees that didn't get as much attention in the early days because of the flamboyant claims of the Nancy Fly and others. These are people who claim to receive psychic messages from benevolent extraterrestrials. These messages came through a voice in the head, through automatic writing, visions, dreams, those sorts of things. By the 1970s, there were all kinds of people around, and not many people were paying attention to them. And finally, Leo Sprinkle, who was a psychologist at the University of Wyoming, got interested in these people and entered into correspondence with them. He began giving them psychological tests, trying to figure out what kind of people believed they had this sort of experience. Then beginning in 1980, he began holding yearly UFO conferences where these people would get together with other contactees and they would exchange stories and tell each other their experiences and so on. These meetings have been going on ever since then. And so Leo Sprinkle has really had a lot to do, not only with noticing and documenting this movement, but helping to perpetuate it just by giving these people a forum. I think it's important that people accept that abduction for what it is. Because I have met people at various UFO symposiums and things who deny the fact that they were abducted. Because all the telltale signs, you can read them off. They may say this and they say that, but they go through denial. So they have to want to help. And that only begins by accepting what has happened. Deny an abduction and be a contactee. I don't know. But that's where they have to accept what has happened, and then they can move on to
I think the word abduction, it means to be taken against your will. It's a negative concept word. And I feel that there's a lot of negativity and a lot of victimization of the contactees simply because someone, all right, you're walking on, you meet some beings, they take you on your ship and they bring you back. Well, you're kind of going through the natural trauma reaction, which is a normal human reaction to any abnormal event. And you don't really know what you feel. And they come up and they say, my God, you were abducted, as opposed to saying,
He just had a contact experience, and the negative influence of abduction, captors. I mean, the whole thing puts a real negative victimization aspect on the whole phenomenon that isn't really necessary. And Bill and I had this discussion about all the time. You know, I think, were you contacted or were you abducted? And I was taken. Sure. There we go. That's everything.
It's not like I was abducted. In the Bible, particularly in the letter to Thessalonians and St. Paul, there's a description of what is supposed to happen at the time of the second coming, when Jesus returns. And the description in Thessalonians is sometimes called the rapture, the word. And so that it is said by St. Paul that at that moment we will just be taken up into the clouds to meet the Lord at the moment of the second coming. And it seems to me that you could probably describe modern abduction experiences as in some sense fulfilling or fitting the description of the rapture. However, the word rapture has an ambiguity about it. The Latin root of the word raptus means literally lifted up, carried away. And the word rapture has the connotation of ecstasy, so we're carried away with ecstatic over the experience. That's a positive experience. That would be stressing the positive aspect of the rapture. But the word rapture is also related to the word rape or abduction. That's the negative side. And so it seems to me that both aspects of the raptus, of the rapture, are represented in modern ecological experiences.
I've always been interested in UFOs my whole life. I lived in Buffalo, Wyoming, and in 1983, Dr. Leo Sprinkle came to do a workshop on UFOs, and I attended that. And 4 days later, I started having recurring dreams. A recurring dream I had as a child. The dreams of being in a boomerang-shaped airplane, being in a round airplane, and 3 years ago I came to the conference here in Maui, and Dr. Sprinkle addressed me to find out about these dreams I had.
I was abducted just about a year ago, last July. I was on a camping trip up near Reno, Nevada. Alone, I was camping and had gone into the city of Reno to try to make some money. And as I approached my car, because I went up pretty night, as I approached my car to park in the street, a group of people, Cosper people, were walking towards me. And as I got just about to my car, I could tell that these people were walking in unison. I thought that was very unusual. And so I began slowing down. And as they were about approximately 15 feet away, I realized that these were not real people. And at that point, I said, run. And of course, at that point, I was paralyzed. I couldn't move.
My first conscious knowledge of an experience was at 8 years old when I lived in Alaska. I was getting out of school, and I saw a moose on top of the hill behind the school. And I said, oh, great. So I decided to go check the moose out. So I went up the hill, and there was no moose, but there was a round airplane. For an 8-year-old, I was an airplane at that time. I don't know how I got in the craft. There was a small craft. The seats were small to fit my size as an 8-year-old. And there wasn't anybody around. I heard footsteps. And I thought it was my mother because I didn't walk home in that way.
I remember briefly they were 8 feet tall. They had black robes and they had fluid on their near side of faces. But I do remember they grabbed me by my arms with these like spider-like fingers and they escorted me to the ship and they we held me firm, so let me know that I wasn't going to be able to get away if I wanted to. It was more like I had to go. It was my turn. And they told me it was my turn, and I was so hurt. It was very good.
So in a small community that appeared telepathically communicated to me that everything was fine, not to worry. And he took me to a seat that had lights above it. These are different colored lights, shone the lights over my head, and communicated me to remember the lights and repeat that a couple times. And then he took me back to the front of the ship and took me up into space. And it was beautiful. It was just gorgeous. I didn't want to come back.
It was sexual. I just remember my heart. I remember them shuffling me from room to room. I remember them laying on a bed and there they were doing an operation. And I remember this lady who's been in my life and forward for quite some time. She was standing to my left, and there were two men. They were men. So I know that they were men doctors. I would imagine they were operating on me, and she kept telling me, "George, just look into my eyes. Everything will be okay."
The abductees are persons who are terrorized, traumatized by the appearance of the entities, whether they meet them out in the open or standing at their bedside in the middle of the night to transport them aboard the ship. And the terror and the trauma continue even after they are brought back to their home. And the abductees display all of the symptoms of a disease or an emotional disorder, which is described by psychiatrists as delayed stress syndrome.
If there's any trauma, going back and living it through hypnosis and actually getting a hold and knowing what happened often relieves the trauma, often takes it away.
I think that was a session when I took it several months after I was adopted. At the time, I didn't even believe it myself, but after hypnosis helped me relax more and understand myself. In just a moment, we're going to witness an unusual experiment. Dr. Leo Sprinkle from the University of Wyoming is going to hypnotize a young man who had an early childhood encounter with a flying saucer and a creature from another world. Now, in order to help him more perfectly reconstruct his memory, Dr. Sprinkle is going to attempt to return the man to the age of 8 when the encounter occurred. Now, we're not quite certain what's going to happen here this afternoon, but one thing is for sure. You're not likely to forget it soon.
Okay, Morris, as we discussed previously, you'll be able to relax deeper and deeper, faster and faster, letting the entire body relax deeper and deeper, like the toes and feet, ankles and calves, knees and thighs, hips and torso, hands and wrists, arms and shoulders, neck and head, letting the entire body relax deeper and deeper, being able to go back in time, back to the experience, being able to talk and describe your reactions to the experience. Into this one rapidly. And it's clear that it's landed on 5 sides of the world. And that's you're amazed at what we've seen and believe it. We noticed as we looked at, and even after it landed, there seemed to be something like particles falling from the sky. It reminded us of black snowflakes, but not as real. You could almost speak to them. As we got closer, Roger and Eric, I was going to get something at us. And if we called again, feel a tingling sensation, not really intense, but all over. And this began to frighten us. For first impression was that converted. He was completely in uniform. Was like the space I've seen on TV. He had it all. The suit was right. The helmet was right. It had something over the front, over the face. It was very much like a person might have looked.
Did you always know you could return to the normal state? Come back to the experience, back to this kind of place, feeling fine and feeling good. You wish you could just count memory on the 5, count to 1, 2, 3, coming more and more to the normal state, feeling fine and feeling good. 4, now wide awake at 5, wide awake and feeling fine. How you doing? Okay. I can feel to you. Went back to memory. Yes.
If you could, the day after, remember everything that they did to you, like when I was committing suicide or taking a leap off of a bridge, and maybe by slowly filtering out through hypnosis. It's like taking a safety net off very slowly, instead of just ripping it off and letting it, take off.
How can I handle it as an 8-year-old?
I think a lot of people are terrified of the idea of what's behind that missing heart. And what often happens is they find good experiences and benevolent beings. And it's just getting over that initial fear of not knowing, and I'm afraid of what I'll find. And coming to terms with yourself and say, I need to know from them mental health.
I'd like to see the scientific community to begin to seriously study this phenomenon. Many of them have been intimidated because they're afraid of being ridiculed for studying a quack field, as it's been labeled sometimes. I think it's because it's only through our science is getting involved, and that we're going to get to the bottom of it. I think really, it's gone on too long where they just totally ignore all this hard evidence. People with marks, people who have all kinds of problems. I think it's time that they stop playing games and get involved to help us.
Primarily, the intent of abduction investigators since the Hill base has been to analyze abduction narratives and find out the characteristics of the aliens doing abductions, any kind of communications that they've been relaying to the person that they're subjecting to this experience. But I think now the emphasis is more on therapy and realizing that the abduction victim is a victim.
I think people, if they're going out and they feel that they've had some kind of a UFO encounter and they feel like they want to talk to somebody in a supportive sense, they have to be smart shoppers. Because just because you've got an MD on your wall or you've got some official UFO placard on your desk doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be ethical, you're going to be fair, you're going to be caring.
I'll put you through the speech that I give to someone I'm working with. I say, my primary response is to you. I'm a psychiatrist, I'm a physician. You've been through something troubling to you, and I'm concerned about your health, your mental health, your physical health, and that you'll be okay. So if it comes to a choice between are we going to have a philosophical discussion about what this all means, or you become a subject of my scientific investigation, that becomes secondary if you are in need of talking with someone about what you've been through and helping to put this into some kind of place in your life so you can go on living your life. I think that the fear and terror that's involved has to do with the loss of control and what you see, the combination of those two things. And so is the anger, primarily with the loss of control. But it doesn't always have to be like that. It can be that control, that there can be a degree of volition involved in these experiences. I think we all get beyond fear and terror. I agree with Larry wholeheartedly that on the other side of it, there is going to be a very, very different type of experience. It's all right. There is clearly a very diverse experience. You must now know that and experience down that strange and winding dark path. On the other side of which lies no fear.
I don't know about the strange and winding dark path, but I know that fear is fear and terror is terror. It's not like there's a special brand of it in red wiggly letters reserved for people that have had what we call abduction or subjective experiences of this kind. Fear and terror of any level can be dealt with and then through.
As a psychiatrist, one of the questions that I had to take very seriously was I dealing with some kind of category of psychiatric illness with which I was familiar with, and no kind of psychiatric illness. And the way I looked into that was to apply the various categories of psychiatric diagnosis with which I am familiar. First of all, psychosis or common madness, or what these people say. They're not all. The people that I work with intensively, they're ordinary. Every other aspect of their lives, they relate well. They form good contact with other human beings. Their sense of reality is very strong. They have appropriate emotionality in relation to what they're talking about. There's nothing about them they're all psychotic or crazy. So that simply doesn't hold up. I look closely at all possibilities that I'm aware of that could explain the illness. I've gone through psychological, psychiatric categories very well. And those findings again expect something extraordinary, which is clearly the result of a person experiencing a bizarre experience outside the normal realm of experience. And so that makes sense. We have to have a real event so that we have that reaction. So that's more or less proves that something went on. Also, psychological testing is done by Marnell in Utah, which is played in New York. My own testing with psychology over and over again, the same result comes to people who life in a mild or moderate post-traumatic syndrome and doing something disturbing, that there's that mistrust and anxiety of people that have had a trauma, which the psychologists say can be accounted for by the experience, not by anything in their prior personality or considered psychiatric problems, separate from the trauma they've undergone. I've been working with psychologists and a clinical social worker now for over 2 years on the study of diabetes. It's difficult to get people to cooperate to sit down and take psychological tests and so forth. They all think they're guinea pigs and so on. I understand that. So we have a small sample of people, about 20 or so people. I think we learned some things. And I think one of the things that we learned that's most critical is that some of these people, in fact, do have mental health problems. Some of them, in fact, serious enough that they should probably seek treatment. I would recommend a couple of cases. I'd say about half the people we work with have such problems. And their abduction experiences are basically just like other people's abduction experiences. Now, Glenn Hopkins and others have talked about how abductees are normal people. And of course, some of them certainly are, but a significant fraction of the ones who we study are not. And I think anybody who's trying to figure out what's happened with the depression experience has to take that into account. It is so mysterious, it is so strange, that somehow we want to explain it, we want to fit it into some sort of structure of thought, reality, experience that we know about it, we want to account for it. And where I live, we can't do it. There is no theory that this point. Nothing in my psychiatric experience, no clinical diagnosis, nothing in mythology, nothing in folklore, each one of the folkloric explanations, both practical in terms of bringing in scientific what they were taking like there in dollars. Both phenomena look superficially similar, but they don't have a hard-edged reality that this appears to have. And so I'm left with this is a great mystery, and has a great deal of meaning to it, but I can't account for it.
So if you're working with somebody, you can't really give a final answer to. You can't really tell them that stop happening. You certainly have to accept the possibility it's going to happen to their children. What good news do you bring them? All you can do is to help them accent life here, which we try to do. We have a support group meeting, we try to accent having a nice time, have a party, bring them wine, have some coffee, and it's a lot of fun. But I always tell people not to dwell on the experiences if they can help it. Because if you do, you're in the position of epileptic. You spend all day worrying about the next feature. And life goes by, and that's what you do. So the point is that if we can be more successful in stopping it, we're giving final language to the people. You know, strangely like unfortunately someone with bleeding disease. With that constant loss of blood, so to speak. These are some of the problems with the current abduction research and hypotheses. The hypothesis leading one being alien, and the research being electrophysiology and so forth. One big problem, people say there are millions of abduction cases, or hundreds of thousands or something. If so, how come we don't see them happen? How come other people don't see abductions happen? Second problem is, okay, so we don't see them happen. How are people taken from their rooms? They go sleep or are they taken through the window? You really believe that's happening or not? It troubles me that we don't have any explanation for it. A third problem, why we shouldn't have believed the current ideas, is that I think the research has been very poor. And I'd like to see much better documentation. For example, why don't we have documentation of false prejudice? Why don't we have better documentation of these stars? I think without that, it's fair and reasonable for a skeptic to not be convinced by the current evidence.
I would like to think that there are no aliens out there abducting people, and that 100% of all the abductions are nothing more than severely repressed traumas of one type or another that are coming to the surface in an alien space-based format. Perhaps talk about challenges or some other kind of trauma inflicted upon a child in the beginning age. But we don't have enough evidence to show that that's the case. Many of the people that come to UFO researchers seem to be very normal in many ways. And there's no clear evidence that that's the case in all circumstances. So I leave the option open that some of these recorded abduction cases are what they on surface appear to be. And until it either happens to me, and then I know, or think I know, or until we are able to do more of a universal survey of the reports, I'm quite firmly on the fence. It's not the fence and barbed wire.
Decide for yourself. Alien autopsy, fact or fiction, what day on Fox. The UFO crash here in 1947. The government cover up the discovery of alien bodies in the inside. Fox presents
has been explaining the key to understanding of the extraordinary monuments of the Giza necropolis lies in a curious connection between sky and ground. There is an ancient body of texts first written down in roughly the 2nd century AD, but with origins which go back into remote antiquity, called the Hermetic texts after Hermes, the Greek name for the ancient Egyptian wizard god Thoth. And these Hermetic texts contain the prediction, as above, so below, that somehow we must seek to replicate on Earth the perfect celestial world that we see in the sky. If we can image that on the ground, and these texts also stress if we can have knowledge of that celestial world, then we may achieve the ultimate goal. And the ultimate goal for the Hermetic texts and in the Pyramic texts and in all the ancient Egyptian scriptures is the immortality of the human soul. It's about the meaning of life. When we die, there is song. It is over. Is that the end of the story? Or we go on? Is the soul eternal? For the ancient Egyptians, there was no doubt on this issue. The body is just a temporary vehicle for an eternal, ageless, central part of ourselves, which lives to an infinity of time, and just cannot take that life for granted entirely. That must earn immortality. Likely these ancient texts is regarded as a precious opportunity not to be squandered and thrown away, an opportunity to learn and grow and develop, to use the intellect that we have. And everywhere else in the ancient Egyptian texts, what is stressed is to obtain knowledge of this cosmic world. There is an ancient Egyptian scripture called the Book of What is in the Duat. Robert has already talked of the Duat, this sky region to which the soul of the deceased journeys. And in the Book of What is in the Duat, the initiate pharaoh, the first king, is instructed to build on the ground a replica, an image of a strange area called the Turin Circle of the Duat. And to know it, he must know this place, and only through knowledge of it can he hope to attain immortality. So, if we are to understand these people and what they are trying to communicate to us, we have to begin to think in their terms. We have to think in terms of sky and ground. We can no longer go on running around in the dust at our feet, looking for wearable and measurable artifacts, which is all we want to do. We have to look to the sky above and try to make sense of what is on the ground from the sky. Now, we're looking at an image of the Great Sphinx of Giza, which we showed you perfectly Jewish road like sort of the tongue. This is what the ancient culture said it gave about. So it's perfectly oriented towards Jews. When we use the name Sphinx, We are, in fact, speaking the ancient Egyptian language, since whose root is a corruption of the ancient Egyptian phrase Shephet Am. And Shephet Am means living image. But whose living image is represented by this serene face staring towards you? The Egyptologists are in no doubt about the matter whatsoever, and their dominance of the knowledge that we receive is so strong that their absence of doubt is reflected in all textbooks, in all the widely popular time-life series of books, in all encyclopedias. They tell us that this monument is the image of the pharaoh Khafra, the pharaoh of the 4th dynasty, that it was built by him in 2500 BC as a kind of guardian for his pyramid, and that it was indeed built in his image. They're adamant about this dating of the monument to 2500 BC and the connection of the monument to Khafra. It's a conflict of a kind. There isn't a single shred of worthwhile evidence either to connect this monument to 2500 BC or to connect it to Khafra. And it disturbs me that no question mark is ever raised over this in the mass of texts that we read about it, for example, in the Encyclopedia Britannica or any other encyclopedia. Particularly so, since there is ancient textual evidence on the site of the King's necropolis, which actually tells us that the Sphinx was already there when Khafra took the throne. This is called the Mbete stela. It was found near the Great Pyramid, and it tells us that the Sphinx was already in place when Khufu, the predecessor of Khafra, built the Great Pyramid. In other words, it was there when Khafra's predecessor was there. Obviously, Khafra could not have built it, and the Mbete stela implies that the Sphinx was already extremely ancient at the time of Khufu. Egyptologists have chosen to totally ignore this ancient stela, which stands in a neglected corner of the Cairo Museum. And the reason that it's ignored is because it does not fit with the preconception that Egyptologists have about this fact. In other words, the fact of this stela disagrees with their theory. Therefore, the fact must be wrong. Egyptologists are more interested, I'm trying to fill this up here. Egyptologists are more interested in this stela, which dates from roughly the same period as the Mbete stela, which stands between the paws of the Great Sphinx. The stela was erected by Pharaoh Thutmose IV at around 1400 BC, long after the Sphinx is supposed to have been built, which I repeat, according to Egyptologists, was in 2500 BC. And here on this stela, which commemorates a restoration of the Sphinx that Thutmose undertook, there appears a single syllable in the ancient Egyptian language, and that syllable is Ka. And it's on the basis of that single syllable, Ka, on that stela between the paws of the Sphinx, that Egyptologists have concluded that the Sphinx was built by Khafra. This I regard as gerrymandering of the evidence. They ignore a stela that says opposite to their point of view, and they cite this as the evidence for the proof that the Sphinx was built by Khafra. Very slim evidence indeed to go on, particularly since that syllable Ka is not surrounded by a royal cartouche, and all ancient Egyptian pharaohs' names were surrounded by this oval divided cartouche. And also because the lines before and after the word Ka are missing, and it's totally out of context. They do point to another similarity. They say that Khafra, the face of Khafra, and this is a known statue of Khafra, inscribed statue of Khafra in the Cairo Museum. They say that this face is clearly the face that is on the Sphinx. Well, I don't think it's possible to arrive at that conclusion just on the basis of common sense, but you don't have to trust me. Our colleague John Anthony Webb will be talking later, took the initiative of bringing to Egypt Bruce Lindick, a forensic artist from New York, the U.S. Police Department, and his name is Frank Domingo. He spent 20 years preparing identity portraits of faces. He's an expert in faces. He knows much more about faces than ethologists do. Frank Domingo did a very careful point-by-point comparison of the face of Khafre and of the face of the Sphinx. And he concluded, without some certainty, that whoever the Sphinx does represent, it is not Khafre. It cannot be Khafre. The differences between the faces are extreme, and there is no possibility that the ancient Egyptian sculptors who were very good at their work were trying to represent this individual when this face was carved. Our view is that the head of the Sphinx was recarved in dynastic times, and perhaps even at the time of Khafre in the 4th dynasty. We're looking at an overhead view of the Sphinx, and you can see that the head is rather small in relation to the enormous size of the body. We suggest that the Sphinx originally had the head of a lion, not only the body of a lion, but also the head of a lion. And that perhaps in the 4th dynasty or around that time, 2500 BC, that heavily eroded and worn down head, which had been on that site on the monument for thousands of years before that, was finally recarved and shaped into the face that it has today. The ancient Egyptians were not able to get their heads out of scale in this manner unless it was necessary to do so. So I think the theory of a heavily eroded leonine head being carved down in dynastic times into the face it has today makes a great deal of sense. And what lies behind this whole concept is John Anthony West's work. This is our friend John, and as I say, will be talking immediately after me. He's the man who is single-handedly and courageously responsible for forcing these ecologists, kicking and screaming against their will, to have to come to terms with the fact, however reluctant they may be to do so, that the great Sphinx may not, in fact, have been carved in 2500 BC. And John has done this through the medium of geology, a far harder science than Egyptology can ever hope to be. He's drawn attention with Professor Robert Schoch at Boston University, who is a specialist in the weathering of limestone, to the curious erosion patterns on the body of the Sphinx. We're looking here at the view of the Sphinx just to show how this amazing 240-foot long, 66-foot high monument was made. It was cast in one piece out of the solid bedrock. The central core body was freed up by excavating rock out of this trench, and that limestone was then sawn up into enormous blocks and moved to create these gigantic temples in front of the Sphinx. Then the body, and as I say, we're also sure the head, was carved into the form of a gigantic lion. It could not have been carved into the form of a gigantic lion in 2500 BC, and the reason was the weathering patterns on the body of the Sphinx and on the surrounding bedrock. As I stressed, the Sphinx is a monolith, it's carved out of solid rock. You do see some restoration blocks on the body of the Sphinx, which have been done at various epochs. We're looking at the rump of the Sphinx here, and good sharp. And these are the erosion patterns that are talked about. You can see these restoration blocks here. In fact, these restoration blocks were put on in the Old Kingdom when the Sphinx was supposed to have been built. So the Egyptologists are right, they were restoring this monument at the very moment when they were building it. It's here in the background, in the trench that surrounds the Sphinx, that you get the closest view of this curious erosion pattern that really makes all the difference. This kind of erosion, as John will explain in much more detail, can only be caused caused by exposure to thousands of years of heavy rainfall, pouring down on the plateau, rolling over the edge of this trench, and spouting out of these rolling undulating curves and cutting these vertical fissures into the rock. Only rainfall, long flowing rainfall, can cause that kind of erosion, and in 2500 BC, Egypt was very dry as it is today. You have to go back far further. You have to go back to the end of the last ice age, when the Sahara was green, to find the kind of climate conditions that could have caused these erosion patterns on the Sphinx. The paleoclimatology and geology cannot be absolutely precise about the dating. Certainly, no way was monument carved in 2500 BC, but the dating might fall anywhere between 7000 BC or as far back as 15,000 BC. We can just do astronomy, the actual date of construction of the Sphinx can be resolved very, very precisely indeed. We're looking here just at the side view of the Sphinx, and I want to just highlight here under the pause another feature which John West and his team discovered in 1993 when they were conducting the geological work on the Sphinx. Using seismic equipment, they identified at a depth of some 20 feet directly beneath the front floor of the Sphinx. They identified a large rectangular cavity in the bedrock, buried in the bedrock. The cavity is extremely symmetrical and appears, by all logic, to be a man-made cavity buried in the rock beneath the Sphinx. Soon after this discovery was made, John and his team were prevented from conducting any further work at the Sphinx. This aggressive interference in the pursuit of an exciting piece of knowledge will be a factor that we'll return to later today when we close this conference. We have something to announce regarding what's happening at Giza at the moment. Let's return to that stela between the pillars of the Sphinx. There's that syllable that the Egyptologists base their case on. In square brackets, as you can see, the line is gray, so that it becomes Ka, but that is not there. All we have is the one syllable Ka. This is a translation of that stela between the bottom of the Sphinx. It also tells us something else. I think it's wildly speculative to deduce that it tells us that the Sphinx was built by Khafre from this syllable here. But it does tell us that the statue was made for Harmakhis. And Harmakhis, again, is a visionized version of an ancient Egyptian name. And that name is Horem Akhet. Horus in the horizon. The statue was built for Horem Akhet. Looking again at details from that text, we see another point of interest. It tells us that the Sphinx marks the splendid place of the beginning of time, literally the first time. And the first time that the concept of Rome was already introduced, the beginning, the origin that the ancient Egyptians spoke of in their texts when God came to their land, bringing civilization, bringing the genesis of the great culture of Egypt. So that's again ignored by Egyptologists to tell us that the Sphinx is a marker for the first time. And again, it repeats Harmakhis, Horem Akhet, that the Sphinx is an image of Horem Akhet, Horus in the horizon. Indeed, it tells us there's something else on that stela, another name for the Sphinx, not only Horem Akhet, but also Horakti, Horus of the horizon. Now, Egyptologists amazingly tell us that there are no mentions whatsoever of the great Sphinx of Egypt in any of the ancient Egyptian texts. We have to come roughly to the New Kingdom, to the time of Tutmosis, to find the Sphinx being named. And yet, on that stela, we see it identified with Horem Akhet and also with Horakti. And although the name Horem Akhet indeed does not appear in Egyptian texts until the New Kingdom, the name Horakti, with which the Sphinx is also identified, appears repeatedly in the early texts, the oldest scriptures known to mankind. And what Robert and I are arguing is that in this lies the clue to the true identity of the saints. Let's remember that ancient Egyptian dualism, that sky and ground logic. If we can identify who Horati is in the ancient Egyptian pyramid text, and since we know that Paramatha and Horati are both named assigned to the Sphinx, then we can also identify who the Sphinx is. Because details, of course, are in our book, Hebrew Genesis, but to cut a long story short, our analysis of the pyramid text, as Robert indicated at the beginning, shows that this wonderful ancient hieroglyphic poetry contains beneath it a precise scientific astronomical language. Passages that have long baffled Egyptologists, that Egyptologists have written out as primitive number jumbo, turn out in fact to contain precise astronomical directions, which relate to the sky in the period when the pyramid texts were written down. And we do not believe that this period was around 2500 to 2300 BC. If you can reconstruct those skies, as we can do on modern computers today, and look at those skies, and compare what you see in those skies with the passages in the pyramid text, you find that what the pyramid texts are communicating are specific astronomical coordinates. This is a central point of our argument. It is to do with an ancient initiation ceremony which the Horus kings of Egypt underwent, and fragments of this initiation ceremony are contained in the pyramid texts. They identify the Horus kings with the disk of the sun, and they tell him to station himself beside the bowl of the sky on the banks of the winding waterway, close in other words to the constellation of Taurus and at the edge of the Milky Way. 70 days prior to the summer solstice, long third year, in 2500 BC, the sun lay in that position on the banks of the celestial waterway. They then tell the Horus king identified with the disk of the sun to make a journey. He's making the journey in his mind in the sky, and we think that he also made it on the ground in the physical landscape of the New Acropolis, following these astronomical clues. They tell him that he must cross the winding waterway, and that he must merge with Horati at the horizon. He must coalesce with Horati. And this very simply explains to us who Horati is, because that is precisely what happens 70 days later. The sun rising on the summer solstice rises in the constellation of Leo. Therefore, we conclude that, of course, there is a great deal more evidence that Leo is Horati. Horati is Horimate. Horimate is the Sphinx, therefore the Sphinx is Leo. The Sphinx is a celestial model of the constellation of Leo. At the summer solstice at the latitude of Giza, the sun rises 28 degrees north of due east. And at the winter solstice, it rises 28 degrees south of due east. The ancient Egyptians were very good at creating what astronomers call solstitial markers in their architecture. They wanted to line a monument up to one or other of the solstitial rising points of the sun. They could do so with great ease. An example is found here at the Great Temple of Karnak in Upper Egypt. We're looking down the long, more than 1 kilometer long axis of the Great Temple of Karnak, and it is targeted precisely on the rising of the sun at the winter solstice. Like an enormous telescope that focuses down on the exact rising phase of the sun on the winter solstice. The famous Colossi Memnon on the west bank at Luxor, which are rarely looked at from an astronomical point of view, also target the winter solstice rising of the sun. This photograph was taken